So this video is about the volume of rectangular prisms, and before we can find the volume of rectangular prisms, we need to know what a volume is. Volume is just the amount of cubes that fill up a 3D figure. All right, so volume is different in area. Area is a two-dimensional, a flat place or plane that is filled up with squares. When you're finding the volume of something, this is a 3D figure, all right? So something like this, and it's the number of cubes that fill it up. So if area is like what it takes to cover a floor in a house, if you're putting tiles on the floor of a house, then it would be the number of square tiles it would take to cover that floor. That would be area, whereas volume would be the amount of cubes it takes to fill something up. So think of like a pool. If I want to know the volume of the pool, how much water it's going to take to fill up my pool, that would be a volume measurement. Or since I don't really think of water as in cubes, maybe I want to fill my pool up with ice cubes. All right, so how many ice cubes would it take to fill up my pool? That's a volume measurement. We specifically are looking only at the volume of rectangular prisms, so we also need to know what that is. A rectangular prism is just a 3D figure that has 6 sides that are all rectangles, okay? Or I should say rectangles or squares, but really squares are just special types of rectangles, so it's the same thing. So any 3D figure that has 6 sides that are all rectangles, that's what we're finding the volume of today. And you can see from the picture, if I wanted to find the volume of this, this is a rectangular prism. I can see that the top is a rectangle, so the bottom will be too. I can see that this front part is a rectangle, so the back will also be a rectangle. And I can see that the sides opposite are going to be the same, and they're both rectangles. So this is a rectangular prism. And if I want to know the volume, what I'm trying to do is count up the number of cubes it takes to fill this up. Well, I can see at the top, they've kind of made this stand out a little bit. I can see at the top there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on just that top layer. And then how many layers are there? Well, there's a top layer, a middle layer, and a bottom layer, so a 3 layer. So I know that the top part, this area right here, okay, it was 9, 3 times 3 was 9, and then this height right here is also 3. So the total number of cubes that make up the space is 27. All right, so how did we get that? We multiplied the area of the base. So the base is the bottom, but it's also the top. All right, so the base right here, the area of this is 3 times 3 because this area, this top part is just a rectangle. The area is 3 times 3. And then we multiply that times the height. And what did we say the height was? The height was also 3. So 3 times 3 was 9, and then times 3 layers, right, was 27. So the volume of this is 27. We would say it's in units, okay? But they're not just regular units, they're cubic units. So we can use the little 3 to identify it as cubic units, or we can spell it out, cubic units, or we can abbreviate with CU, cubic units. In rectangular prisms, it's even slightly easier than that because what are you doing to find the area? You're just multiplying length times width, and then you're multiplying it times the height. So you can see this here. This big B stands for the area of the base. That's the 3 times 3 part, and then times how tall it was, times 3. Okay, in a rectangle, since the area is length times width, right, we're gonna do that part and then multiply times the height. So you can also think of volume in a rectangular prism as length times width times height. So again, what you're going to be doing is multiplying those 3 dimensions. Look at the first example. We're finding the volume. It tells me, and it's given, this is colored like this so you can see the bases. So the base here, the length times the width right here would be what? 5 times 5. That would be 25, and then times the height here, right? So the area of the base, that's the big B. That's what they're asking me to do. And I'm pointing this out because as we look at different figures, how you find the volume is not going to change, but the area part, okay, the way you find the area will change. So if I'm finding the volume of this, and I'm going to call this a cube because each side is the same, just kind of appear 3, 3, and 3, and that makes it a cube. So to do 5 times 5 times 5 like that, then I'm going to find the volume. And I just do 2 of these at a time, so 5 times 5 is 25, and then I need to know what 25 times 5 is. Again, that's something you need to do over to the side. Take the time to do that. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. So this ends up being 125. And it's being measured in centimeters, but they're not regular centimeters. They're cubic centimeters. So I'm going to use that 3 to show that it's cubic. And number 2, again, I have 3 dimensions to find the volume. I'm just going to multiply the base right here. I can see they colored it differently. So this is 9 times 5. That's how you find the area of the base. And then you multiply times how tall it is times 7. All right, so if I multiply 9 times 5, I get 45. And then I need to still do the 45 times 7. That's 35, carry your 3. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 3 is 31. This ends up being 315. It's being measured in inches, but not just regular inches, cubic inches. So again, you can use abbreviations for that. Number 3, again, the volume is the length times the width times the height. So I could say the base here, if I wanted to just make it stand out. The area of that rectangle at the bottom is 12 times 4, and then times the height would be 5. 12 times 4 is 48, and then I still need to do times 5. So 48 times 5 is 40. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 is 24. So this ends up being 240. It's in centimeters. We're going to call those cubic centimeters. And number 4, this one's been split up, so you can see the actual cubes that you would be counting if you were finding the volume of this. If you were just doing it manually, you could physically count the number of cubes. If we use the formula we've been given, we know that we just need to multiply the area of the base. So the base is made up of the 2 and the 3, so 2 times 3, and then times the height would be 5. So 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 5 is 30. This is in meters, so we're going to make those cubic meters. Number 5 says to find the volume of a cube with a side length of 4 inches. There's no picture with this one. If it's helpful, you can make your own picture. And because it's a cube, that's just telling me that all 3 dimensions are 4. So if I'm finding the volume of this cube, I need to do 4 times 4 times 4. So the first 2 4s, 4 times 4 gives me 16. I'm going to multiply that times 4. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. So this ends up being 64, and it's being measured in inches. So I'm going to make that cubic inches. The volume is 64 cubic inches. And then the last problem is telling me the volume of a rectangular prism is 720 cubic meters. If the width is 10 meters and the height is 9 meters, what is the length of the prism? So even though it is a volume problem, I am not solving for volume. So it's sometimes, again, helpful to have your own picture. So go ahead and draw that. The width is 10. And the height is 9, and I'm looking for the length. I'm looking for this length here. I like to do the curly L, so it doesn't look like one. So I'm looking for this. So normally when I find the volume, I do length times width times height. So in this case, I would do 10 times something, right? This is the part I don't know, times 9. It tells me the volume is 720, so I know that these 2 numbers, or 3 numbers, all have to multiply together to get 720. I can't do this middle one. I can't use that middle one since I don't know it, but I could do 10 times 9. 10 times 9 is 90. So I know that 90 times something, that last one, has to equal 720. So the way to find that is to do the opposite. Since I can't multiply, I'm going to divide. 90 will go into 720, so just drop those zeros. What times 9 is 72? 8. So 8 times 90 is 720, so that tells me this piece right here would be 8. So that's telling me the length, right, here would also be 8. So times that would all equal 720. The length is going to be 8, and it's being measured not in cubic meters because length is just a measurement of how long something is. It's going to be just regular meters, 8 meters. All right, so that's volume in a rectangular prism. Volume is the amount of cubes it takes to fill up something. Rectangular prisms are 3D figures that have 6 sides that are all rectangles. All right, if we're finding the volume of a rectangular prism, it's the area of the base times how tall it is, or, okay, for rectangular prisms only, you can do length times width times height. All right, see you soon.